So you talk about the pond, cement pond. Um, what's what does being a part of the pond mean to you?
Um, well, my life has been since that moment that I started banjo lessons. I previously had piano lessons too, but music has always been a great part of my life. As most everybody's aware, my participation has been production, the making of albums, the structuring of technical support for tours, and in the later part of my career, producing. Uh, There was one period back, 1969, where Jerry and I had finished some last-minute details with the mixing of Awacha Machoa, administrative stuff and maybe some sequencing and something or other before we turned the album in. And he had been learning the pedal steel at that time, and which he liked to talk about. He presented it as a very interesting, fun challenge. He said, you think about walking and chewing gum is complicated. He said, you got to try bending your knees, lifting your toes, moving your arms, and thinking. He said, it's quite a challenge. But at the end of that session, I asked him, how was things going with his woodshed project he was doing with an old friend, John Dawson, who everybody knew as Marmaduke, playing coffee houses down the peninsula. John with his songs and Jerry backing him up with his pedal steel. And Jerry said, oh, it's going quite well. As a matter of fact, we're starting a band. I said, oh, well, who's in it? And he said, well, David Nelson, and I applauded him for that. David Nelson's a fantastic guitar player, very together and funny guy. And then he said, and Mickey Hart's the drummer. And I said, oh, okay. And then as he was leaving, he turned back over his shoulder and looked me right in the eye and said, oh, by the way, you're the bass player. And I sort of looked flabbergasted, and he said, look, I tried to teach you 5 strings. I think you can deal with 4 strings on a bass. And I got to play with the New Riders from their inception in May of 1969 through late September, and had some incredible experiences getting to play music and experience the sense of community that a band that produces music that is greater than the sum of its parts. It's something that I watched in the Grateful Dead, and I consider it a very magical experience. And I got to experience that. But a time came where I had to choose between playing in the band or continuing my recording career. And obviously I chose my recording career because I went on to do Workingman's Dead and Life Dead immediately after that, and the rest, as they say, is history. So later in my life, in the last 10 years, after retirement, I got into having my own studio and own production capacity, and I wanted to play music again. So I contacted David Nelson and indicated that I was going to be at a festival that the New Riders were playing at in summer of 2006, and that wouldn't it be a hoot if I showed up as a surprise guest after 37 years and played Last Lonely Eagle with him. Well, that happened. It was a surprise for everybody, and it was an experience that is one of those that I remember in my life. I remember walking off the stage with a big grin on my face, wondering, why did it take me 37 years to pick up an instrument again? So, working towards that, I've just taken opportunities as they've come up. Meeting the Lindells through Betty started it. I set up their ability to perform at that same festival that I played at with the New Riders, and we just became really good friends, and always swore that we would try to do a project together. Time went by. I got ill the first time in 2009 with pulmonary embolisms in my lungs, and I waited till just about the last minute before I saw help for that. And when I got out, I was more interested in continuing to play music. The Lindells came out following summer, or maybe it was 2 years later. It was in 2011 that the Lindells came out, and they stayed here in the house in Sebastopol with Janet and I. And they had me play, sit in on a set of about 12 tunes at a house concert in Napa Valley. And they introduced me to the host of the house concert, who was Stan. And when they left to go back home, they said, you know, Stan really would like to play some music, and he doesn't have anybody to play with. And I threw my hands in the air, and I said, well, I'm here. And so it's been a long struggle because of the illness that I then came down with later in 2011, my multiple myeloma. And when I started getting myself back on the grid, Stan presented opportunities to practice and play with different people. And it's been an evolution over the last 3 years. And it's a lot of fun, and it's very satisfying in my life to-do list. I don't know how much time I've got left. I do have some time, but one of the things that I'm enjoying doing while I am able to is playing music with these guys. Couldn't find a better set of people to play with or have as friends. And this tour that we're talking about in May and June in Colorado is sort of like, it's a dream. Just like playing in a band is a dream. Playing music that's valid and fun and you believe in is a dream. And being able to carry it out and do what we would have called a mini tour, but it's a tour. It's out there playing music for people that we've never played for before and putting it out there. And I guess you could say it's part of the bucket list. It's things I really want to do, and I want to keep on doing it as long as I can.
Cool. You mentioned to Larry and myself the other day the term cancer survivor trainee. What does that mean?
As I mentioned, I have multiple myeloma. 2.5 years ago, I was trying to diagnose with my doctor and various processes, imaging mostly, to find out why I was having such bad back problems. We never did find the problem until the Monday of Thanksgiving week in 2011. I became paralyzed from the chest through my shins. I was taken into the hospital. After a day and a half of fooling around, they finally got an MRI that showed that I had a huge tumor on my third vertebrae. They then helicoptered me down to Castro Valley to Eden Medical Center, where on Thanksgiving Day, they put me on the operating table and cut down to my spine, relieved the fracture that the tumor had caused, and fused the top 3 vertebrae with 2 titanium rods. And then I started undergoing treatment for the cancer itself. Radiation, a 1.5 years of chemo, which ended last fall, or last summer. In June of 2013, I went in for an autologous stem cell transplant, a bone marrow transplant, which was successful. And when I recovered from that process, which is one where they give you almost lethal dose of chemo, in September, in fact the day that we had a house concert at Stan's in September, the day that I arrived over there for rehearsal, I had been told that my cancer was in remission. And this is now, this is St. Patrick's Day 2014. And since then, since last fall, the testing has shown that I continue to be month by month in remission, and that I've been able to stop taking chemo, which chemo has a major derogatory effect on cognitive capabilities, particularly the ability to play music and be able to think rapidly and just be smart. And I've discovered that the whole chemo process makes that very, very difficult. So not having to do chemo for over 6 months enables a good level of my capabilities of playing music and satisfaction therefrom.
So to those who choose to support this, what's your message to those who choose to help us and support us in this project?
Well, hey, we would like to do this tour. It's something I would really enjoy, and I'm hoping that it's something that people who come visit us, either to listen to music or we're able to do an interview for, or any interaction, I'm hoping that it'll be enjoyable for them too, both from the musical and from the personal interaction. And like I said, it's something that's on my, consider to be on my bucket list. So it would be great if we could do this. And I think that it will be a milestone that will continue to be there long after I'm not.